I'm Robin Gagnon.
And I'm Eric Gagnon, and we sell restaurants. We started the nation's largest restaurant brokerage firm, We Sell Restaurants, over a decade ago. You can find us online at WeSellRestaurants.com.
And we're on your radio once a week with the leading authorities in this industry, talking about subjects trending in the restaurant business. Tweet your own questions on our topic while we're on the air to our Twitter handle, that's Sell Restaurants, or post them on our Facebook page. It's at Facebook.com/We Sell Restaurants. Remember, if we don't get to your question, we'll follow up on our social media channels.
Our goal is to satisfy your appetite for acquisition, feed the need for restaurant reality, and serve up a recipe for business success. If you have any ideas or comments for the show, you can email me. My email is Eric, E-R-I-C, at WeSellRestaurants.com.
Today, we have a great show for you. We have a chef who's actually based out of good old Atlanta, Eddie Russell, who is joining us to talk about his exciting new series on Cooking Channel, Belly Up. When looking for a great place to enjoy food, most people aren't looking for a bar. They're looking for a restaurant. The bar, well, that's a place for great beer, laughs, and peanuts, not palate-awakening food. Well, not anymore. Chef Eddie Russell is changing the way America experiences bar food. He is enlightening chefs, showing them that bar food can be both delicious and sophisticated. He'll taste what bars and pubs are currently serving and help them come up with new, innovative, enticing foods that won't break the budget.
Eddie got his first taste for cooking as a young sous chef in his grandmother's kitchen. He continued his training at Athens, Georgia-based restaurant 5 and 10, Farm 255, and Trapeze Pub, as well as Parish Food and Goods in Atlanta. Eddie's style of ingredient-driven, simplistic techniques have put him at the forefront of culinary innovation. He is known for an appreciation and commitment to slow food and conscious sourcing. He helped create the Four Horsemen Supper Club, an exploration of food technique, sustainability, seasonality, and community. Eddie continues his passion for cutting-edge pairings and cuisine as a partner for Private Residence Supper Club, based where he resides in Athens, Georgia. Eddie, we're happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Eddie, the word's out. So it looks like you have a new show on the Cooking Channel called Belly Up. Tell us a bit about that.
You know, it's, for lack of a better word, it's a sort of restaurant consulting show. I mean, you know, unlike a lot of the other shows where we go in and redo, we're focusing solely on bars, kind of gastropubs, you know, bar-centric menus. So not your giant, 400-seat place. It's, usually smaller places. But really the focus is on the menu. You know, we go in and we remodel the restaurant, or bar, we make it look different. But really what differentiates Belly Up from a lot of other shows is that I'm all about the food, like 100% all about the food. So, I walk in and give them a brand new menu, but more about like giving them the tools to succeed. As a functional consultant in my real life and a chef, I'm trying to help them actually learn how to run a business, because a lot of times they don't.
I think that
we agree on that.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me, because, bar food has this reputation that you need a drink or two just to wash it down. And I watched a little video clip, and you actually said that one of the dishes you tasted made you want to get drunk to taste the food. Is that part of what's driving this mission of yours to take the level of bar food up a notch?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's a very different world we live in. It's 2014. Like, almost everyone is a little bit more savvy nowadays, I mean, and again, it's all about knowing your market. If you're trying to serve fancy cocktails and craft beer, but then you're serving people frozen French fries and frozen fish, you're not real. Like, there's a disconnect there that I think a lot, we see this a lot on the road, is that people will invest a ton of money in the concept of the place, and then the food is not even the tertiary thing. It's like literally the last thing they think of. And so when you're eating something like that, it doesn't really make you want to come back, and especially not to eat. You'll drink and then you'll go somewhere else.
Right.
Absolutely. Now, I know you're the face of the show, but you're not on your own, because you're going in there literally in real time, 24 hours with a crew of people, and you guys are making dramatic changes in a little period of time. Tell us a bit about that.
I mean, honestly, what you see is a lot of reality. I mean, there's a lot of 16, 20-hour days. My designer, I work with two different designers on the show, Jerry and John, and both are just rock stars. But, I mean, there's not a lot of TV magic in that. I mean, we really are in there slugging it out in about 2.5 days of just, I mean, from when I walk in the door until we walk out, it's pretty much just 100%, like, very little sleep.
And you don't spend $1 million in there, right? I mean, this is one thing that people have to realize is, like, it doesn't cost a fortune always to do a remodel to make a big impact. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a limited budget, but I mean, we try to make the most of it. But it is about again, not reinventing the wheel, but taking what works or taking what you want it to be. And I mean, sometimes it's a coat of paint. Sometimes it's, new tables and chairs, but sometimes it's a new piece of kitchen equipment. We've bought some people like a meat grinder and stuff. So that affects our budget for what we can do outside, but it leaves them with tools.
That's great. Now, let me ask you this. Who contacts you for help? Is it the owner or the staff? I mean, is everybody on board when you're going in?
No. Luckily, I mean, we're dealing with the owners to begin with. We start our search kind of as casting a net wide, but, we try to bring the owner in as much as possible. And I think when I get in there, we're sort of friendly, but I don't sugarcoat anything. So when we leave, I try to leave on a good friendly note, but I definitely ruffle some feathers.
Lexi, you and I would get along very fine because as a restaurant broker, we don't sugarcoat it either. And then sometimes it's tough love. That is the best love.
Well, my mother says that my mom says I don't suffer fools well. So, yeah.
Now, how did it come out? A lot of people listening, have restaurants or consultants and everything. Did you come up with an idea and go pitch it to the cooking channel, or were you approached by that? How did that come about?
Long story short, I was involved in the underground restaurant in Athens called the Four Horsemen. We were sort of a thing for a minute. We were in a lot of food magazines. We had 2 pilots on the cooking channel itself. So the production company I've worked with is the same one that we started with the Four Horsemen. After we decided to sort of go our separate ways, I continued working with Two Rivers, is the production company, and Garrett Bess, who's the owner, is a good personal friend. And we were throwing ideas against the wall, and Belly Up really stuck, and it was one we could get behind.
That's great. Now, tell everybody a little bit about your experience in the industry. How did you grow up in this industry, and how have you made an impact?
I started as a summer job before I went to grad school, and I was working for Hugh Atchison in Athens at 5 and 10, right around the first time it opened, or right when it first opened, and never thought I was going to be a cook. Yeah. I really thought it was going to be a summer job, and 12, 13 years later, here we are. But I fell in love with it, and I kind of made a goal that if I was going to learn how to do this, especially not going to culinary school, I was going to learn every facet. So I've been a butcher, I've been a pastry chef, a bread baker, a line cook. I've done everything. And I think the part of me that made it natural to sort of move into consulting was I wanted to learn the entire part of the business, but I also wanted to learn how the business works, because a lot of people know how to cook, but they don't understand that if you want to own your own business, you kind of need to know how to do some accounting.
Right.
So that, after working many restaurant jobs, being, executive chef at a number of places, I decided that instead of just doing the same thing every day, I'd love to go in and fix problems. I'm a puzzle solver. That's what I like doing. So that's sort of why I kind of moved into consulting.
Now, the segment that I watched briefly, you talked about online reviews. So tell us a little bit about that. It's probably part of your research before you go in. Mm-hmm. And restaurants are definitely highly impacted by this social millennial who's out. But I would think that bars are especially vulnerable to these online reviews. And maybe people are texting and drinking, or they're socializing in general. So they might be putting it all out there. Mm-hmm. So any advice for folks who are getting those kind of online reviews?
The best advice really is no matter what you do, you're never going to please everybody. The worst thing you can do, and I've seen this happen more often than I would ever imagine would, never engage in it. Like, you're not going to please everyone. So if someone comes in and has a really bad order of wings or whatever it is, and they write a terribly scathing comment, the last thing you should ever do is sit there and respond to it. And you'd be surprised how many times I've seen a restaurant owner engage in that. And it's the internet troll. I mean, those people are going to sit there and just ruin you.
And they'll pound you back on the keyboard.
Well, and you validate it.
Right.
As soon as you acknowledge it, you validate it. And that's the worst thing you can do as an owner. You just move on and try to be better tomorrow.
Great advice.
That is very good advice, because online reviews, we all know it is, nobody's got 100%. I mean, the reality is that there are going to be people that are not happy with you. Some people maybe have a little too much to drink, a little too late in the day. They regret, but they don't go back and retract. They keep it on there. So It's important to have a strategy or a plan. Now, tell us a little bit about, there's a lot of, like you said, your show is different, but there's a lot of people on the air to try to fix other people's restaurant as well. Tell us about your style. I mean, you said, I don't sugarcoat it, so I kind of liked it a lot. But, are you going to be more like a Gordon Ramsay in there and yelling at people, or like a Robert, or like a John Taffer? I mean, what is Eddie's style?
I mean, I would say I'm definitely unique in that, I've been described, Garrett calls me, I'm the kind of guy that I can tell you everything I know, but then I'm the guy you want to have a beer with afterwards. I don't believe that you have to crack skulls to make things work, but I also believe that, if you try to go in there and not upset anyone, you're never going to get the job done. I mean, I am a very nice dude. I'm a Southern boy who, believes in being polite, but also when I'm in the kitchen, like, I'm the boss. So again, I don't know. I mean, the best answer for my style is one of, we're all going to get there together. So I don't really succeed and you don't succeed by me burning you up. I'm there to help you. But if you're not going to listen to me, then I'm going to have to kind of beat it into your skull a little bit.
You touch a very good point here. We got to get there together. And how important for people listening out there that are owners or want to be owners to have the team. We talk about that as restaurant brokers a lot. I mean, you cannot operate as a one-man shop. I don't care how small of a little of a place you have. So how important, and some advice would you have for operators out there to make sure that they have the team marching into one direction?
I think the best thing, and the one that gets overlooked the most, is something I touched on a minute ago, which is when people open restaurants, or a lot of times, especially for people who are not massive industry veterans, and there's a ton of people, especially people that we go out to help, 9 times out of 10 are not industry veterans. This has been a hobby, this has been, a dream, and
this is what makes us a living, by the way, as
exactly.
restaurant brokers.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, as a consultant, it's the same thing for me. I think the last thing people think about is the kitchen, though. Sometimes they don't understand and don't put a lot of attention into how food is going to actually come out of their kitchen. And that's efficiency in terms of kitchen placement, in terms of, where the hotline is. I mean, there's a million things I could list here, but it really is just, if you're going to serve food, before you think about the people who are in charge of doing that. Think about, again, one of the places we went to, they had the bartenders also being the people who were cooking the food.
Oh.
You can see where there's going to be a disconnect there, where there's going to be a massive bottleneck. It is about really thinking that at the end of the day, once you choose to have a food menu, you are a food service establishment, and you have to think about how food is coming out of that kitchen. So don't have the, $20 a piece wine glass and have the, $700 bar stool and then have the $200 oven that you got at a yard sale. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Right. And the cheapest ingredients you can find frozen and stacked in the back.
Don't even get me started on that. Yeah, that's a whole other... Again, it's what we talked about earlier. I mean, your average diner, be it in a bar or restaurant, whatever, understands the difference between cafeteria food and restaurant food.
Right.
Gone are the days that people are just kind of not really caring about that anymore.
So we have a question we love to ask our guest chefs when they come on the show, because we had this question posed to a Food Network star one time. We love to get the answer. So we're going to pitch it to you. What are the 5 must-have ingredients in your pantry or refrigerator that you need in order to whip up a great meal?
That's a really good question.
I'll give you a hint. Almost every chef we've ever had on the show says garlic. That's in his must-haves.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things that goes in almost everything. I guess I'm a little different. I swear to God, I'll put coriander in about anything. So coriander is one of my favorite aromatics, and bay leaves. So there's very few things that I don't put that into. Olive oil.
Olive oil.
I typically use a lot of olive oil over butter.
Okay.
Yes, I grew up in the South, but I don't necessarily believe that you need to die just to eat good food.
Correct.
What else would I say? I put fennel in almost everything. Fennel is one of my favorite ingredients. I'll pickle it, I'll braise it, I'll, throw it in soups.
Then you got to have a protein.
Yeah. Got to have a protein.
Okay, we've stumped Chef Eddie.
I would say my favorite protein is rabbit. It's kind of, as I said before, it's as though God made a dark meat, an entire animal that's composed of dark meat chicken. It's the best thing in the world.
It is. I love rabbit.
Okay, we're definitely going to be tweeting that, because who would know that rabbit is your favorite protein?
It is. And very few bones. It's great.
That's very interesting. You are very different. People should take that as a notice. I like that a lot. That was great answers on that.
Thank you.
Tell us about some cities. I know you've been traveling a bit over the country with the show. Some of the cities that you've been, is there any favorite, or somebody should be on the lookout for one episode more than the other one?
I'll say my favorite city in terms of just seeing something that we don't get to see down here was Seattle. Just the access to seafood is so mind-boggling. I mean, the West Coast oysters are some of the best things on the planet, and to be able to just get those and not have to worry about shipping them over here. I was really spoiled. I was absolutely spoiled in Seattle, because I could eat my entire body weight in oysters. So that, for me, I mean, just on a personal level, was my favorite city, because we just don't get a lot of access. I mean, yes, we have a lot of good things coming out of the Gulf, but just to have that bounty that close is so impressive as a cook.
Wow.
So you spend a lot of time in bars improving the food and drink experience. Is a bar where you go after hours? Is that where you wind down?
I mean, I'd pretty much say that almost every cook would say yes to that. Not as much as nowadays, because having a little one waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning is not so fun if you stayed out 2 o'clock at night.
Up 3 a.m. is a little short night.
Yes. But I will say that a good Manhattan at the end of the day is probably one of the best things on the planet.
That's great.
There you go.
So how do you figure out, do you have a strategy where you go in and figure out exactly what needs to be changed when you go into one of these bars?
No, I feel like I approach every place differently because, again, if I try to input what I think is right, I'm not doing my job. That's what differentiates me, I think, from other people is I'm not going in there to try to I'm putting my stamp on it, but I'm not trying to just hammer fist my idea of what this place needs to be. What I approach it as, and I sit down with every owner, is who are you? Who is your clientele? Who do you want your clientele to be? And what do you want your restaurant or bar or whatever to say? Because if I don't ask those questions, then I'm not really giving them what they want.
Great.
Good. That's good. Let me help our listeners here also, because I mean, you talk about, hey, there's restaurants of 400 seats, 200 seats, and there's bars, where it may be smaller, more intimate, different kind of seating areas, seating arrangement. What would be the biggest difference, you would say, between a restaurant menu and a bar menu? Because a lot of people just, this restaurant does a great shepherd's pie, so we're going to put shepherd's pie on our menu. And
exactly.
That doesn't work at all.
Well, I think, by nature, we're discussing places that are usually small, probably anywhere from, at maximum, 100 seats. Anything over that, to me, is not a bar restaurant. It's a restaurant that has a bar. Belly Up does focus mostly on bars that serve food. And to me, the thing that I see is that people try to do way too much. You'll have a tiny kitchen. You don't even have a walk-in. You're working out of refrigerators, and then you have a 27-item menu. Why?
Right.
Again, something to be said about it is if you're the kind of place that has all of the normal tropes, you've got the burgers and the french fries and the, hot dogs and grilled cheese sandwiches and, insert food item there, the jalapeno poppers. Well, you're not different than anyone else. Why not have 5 things that are absolutely amazing, that you are known for, that no one else is doing? Better to do 5 things absolutely perfect than ever do 20 things. I mean, you look at a lot of stuff that's happened in New York City, and there's places that are micro bars that serve just tacos, and they're literally the best taco you ever had.
And that feeds over into the fundamentals of the restaurant as well, because if you have a much more limited menu, you have much greater control over your food costs, much greater control over your inventory and your par levels and everything else, so that then the business of running the bar goes up and elevates along with the food.
I fully agree with you. I think the one mistake people make that I would say that is the most apparent, but the one that they most overlook, is food waste. They don't think about what's going in the trash. They're not looking at the trash can at the end of the night. They're not paying attention to what's going. There's no waste logs. There's no real. I mean, most of these places aren't even doing inventory. And that to me is when you're not realizing what's getting thrown away and what's getting wasted, you're not realizing your food cost. I mean, one alone. I'll tell you this one. And there was a place we went to where one item alone had a 60% food cost.
Oh my God.
Think about that for a second.
So you're paying customers to actually
eat your food.
this.
You're actually paying people to eat it.
Yeah.
You really are.
Wow.
Right.
And that's not uncommon. It's really not. And I mean, and it's not your big ticket items where you're serving someone foie gras. I mean, this was a very cheap ingredient based item, but it was portion control was the biggest problem of why that dish was just astronomically out of the park.
Wow.
Now, today people have a ha-ha moment, because we tell that a lot of people ourselves, look, I mean, Miller Lite, Budweiser, whatever, Grey Goose tastes the same everywhere. It doesn't matter if you have 50 of them, 10 of them, microbreweries, the beers, the alcohol is pretty much the same unless you make it. Mm-hmm. So really the food becomes your key secret weapon. But there's people, bar owners like, hey, I'm in the bar business. I'm not in the food business. Do they have a ha-ha moment? Are you able to get through them and make them understand that this is going to be their hook for sustainability and future growth?
I mean, you'd hope. But again, I mean, there's a certain point where there's an expression of, the devil that you know is better than the devil you don't. And some of these people, I mean, the people that I'm trying to help they're not just cruising along. They're in dire straits. And so I hope and I try, and I mean, my background, I have one of my best friends is a craft brewer. He owns a brewery here in Avondale Estates. And so I understand a lot about beer. And so when these places are trying to do craft beer and craft cocktails, I'm trying to explain to them that it's not such a leap to have a $9 pint of beer that's really delicious. Why not have a $7 or $12 food item that pairs well with that? But again, there is a weird, very strong disconnect between booze and food. And sometimes people don't get that, well, people are going to come here and drink the pint of beer. They don't really care what they're going to eat. And I'm like, then they're never going to eat here. Because you're not the only one in the craft beer game.
That's true. And then you're talking about average ticket prices that could go up. And you know what? I love the sort of double entendre about your show, because it's belly up, which can mean you're going to go belly up or belly up to the bar.
Exactly.
Because that really is it. Either get some advice and get in the game, or you're going to become yesterday's news.
Agreed. I mean, because, again, we're there for such a short period of time. I don't have a magic wand. I can't fix all of your problems. The goal of the show is to give you a perfect night of service, to show you what you can be. I listen to what they want to be, and I try to deliver that experience for one night. And then I leave them with all of the tools. I leave them recipes. I have programs of how to do food cost and inventory management. Like, they're not left bereft of knowledge. But again, it's up to them to take that. And not everyone's going to. Not everyone's going to go and say, well, I really like that, so I'm going to keep doing it. And you're like, okay, well, I can't help you. I can try.
Now, have you seen some personnel shifts after you've come out of a restaurant? Are there some folks that just say they're not going to make the cut and move on because they won't get with the program?
You'll have to tune in, because there is a little bit of that. So, I mean, again, to say that I don't suffer fools well, I have no patience for laziness. And if you're not on board, then, well, hey, and
C'est la vie.
There's Craigslist.
Yeah.
There you go. Let me ask you a question about, we see, a lot of bars, to me are becoming more like every night they change. One night it's karaoke, one night it's poker, one night it's entertainment, one night is comedy, one night is 99-cent wings. There are so many different things, and it's almost like a headache, because every night it's a different place. So it's not your local place just to go gather and meet with friends anymore. It's just something. So have you run into this, and what is your advice on people to try to be everything to everybody for the neighborhood?
My canned response to that is, once you try to be everything for everyone, you end up appealing to no one. I mean, you're banal, you're normal. Like, you're no different than a chain restaurant, a chain bar at that point. So why not just do that? Just do aim for the bottom and just make a ton of money by selling cheap beer and cheap food. I mean, there's still always going to be a market for that.
You're listening to Eric and Robin Gagnon, the Restaurant Brokers, and our guest today, Eddie Russell, from the new cooking channel show Belly Up. Continue to listen as we satisfy your appetite for acquisition, feed the need for restaurant reality, and serve up a recipe for business success.